your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News Weekend Edition.
Hello, I'm Naveen Day. Thanks for joining us for a look at what made headlines this past week. A cancer patient who was admitted at Lethbridge's Chinook Regional Hospital recently says she was shocked from what she describes as, quote, inhumane experience. Rose Roll shared with BCN her experience as a patient when she was moved from her room during treatment to a hospital storage room. BCN's Landon Hickok has more on the story.
Rose Roll has been fighting cancer for the last 4 years and was going to Chinook Regional Hospital for a standard treatment where she needed to be monitored closely at the hospital. But her recent experience ended up being anything but standard.
It came about kind of sudden, and an AHS staff member had come upstairs to get me, to port me down to get my injection. And on my way out, they said that they were changing my room and I was going to the storage room. When I saw the room, I just almost broke into tears immediately.
Roll was moved to a hospital storage room where she endured 29 hours in what she said was a dirty and dusty room that was without much of the typical necessities.
It's a storage room, and I was napping once and the staff just barged in, turned on the lights, opened the door and got whatever they wanted.
Roll says she had to share a bathroom with 2 male patients and that she had significantly less visits from hospital staff, even though her treatment needed consistent checkups to watch for side effects or unpleasant reactions.
Still no communication. I didn't know, like, am I there for 2 hours? Am I there for 6 hours? Are they just waiting for a bed to open? So it was a shocking experience, a real eye-opener.
Eventually, Roll determined that she waited long enough and left the hospital to the initial hesitation from staff.
I felt like it was totally unfair the way they handled it, and I thought it was inhumane.
Alberta Health Services has issued an apology to Roll in a statement that was shared with BCN, adding that staff have now removed the shelving unit and cleaned the room in response. In sections from the same statement, Alberta Health Services said that Chinook Regional Hospital is currently experiencing high patient demand and the unit in which this patient was being cared for is under a respiratory outbreak. Overcapacity spaces are commonly utilized during periods of high demand to maintain patient care standards. It's an established practice, and we emphasize patients in overcapacity spaces receive safe and appropriate care. I
would just hope that they could utilize the hospital better. And I'm scared to go back to the hospital, actually. It's got a little bit of fear built into me now because I don't know what I would do if it happened again.
For Bridge City News, I'm Landon Hickok.
When it comes to saving lives, every single second matters. That's why Lethbridge Police, along with Fire and Emergency Service, partnered in the creation of the Tactical Emergency Medical Services, or TEMS program. The new initiative embeds 7 care paramedics with LPS tactical team to provide life-saving care on the scene, such as hostage takings or active assailant scenarios. Gerald Grobmeyer, the deputy chief with LPS, explains why it is important to launch this initiative.
Over the past few years, we've seen an increase in tactical team deployments and high-risk incidents involving weapons and violence. We've had some close calls, including a hostage taking that resulted in life-threatening injuries to the victim. In that case, the victim fortunately survived, but both agencies recognized the increased risks to the safety and the public of our first responders. Prior to the implementation of TEMS, paramedics would be staged blocks or even further away from the scene of an incident, resulting in a delayed response. Now, TEMS paramedics will be on scene in the inner perimeter with police and available to immediately provide critical medical care in the event that a call results in casualties.
That will provide additional support to the citizens of Lethbridge. This initiative has been underway for many years, and we're very excited that we're rolling it out in 2025.
What will happen is a critical incident will come in as I'm calling out the tactical team and other critical incident units. At the same time, I'll be calling out Peter, who will assign 2 TEMS medics that'll come to the police station, and they'll jump in the armored rescue vehicle and will be in the inner perimeter on any critical incident in the city of Lethbridge.
This is in addition to the level of EMS that we provide regularly. So our staffing level of ambulances aren't affected at all. This is over and above that.
Well, the long-dreaded date when U.S. President Donald Trump promised to impose tariffs on Canadian imports is upon us. How do we respond to this threat? That's next. United States President Donald Trump has made good on his threat to impose a 25% tariff on Canadian goods imported into the U.S. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has gone on record in the days leading up to February the 1st to say diplomacy is the answer when it comes to dealing with President Trump. That sentiment is echoed with our political reporter Brian Lilley. In this clip with BCN's Jeanette Roche, Mr. Lilley told her earlier this week that tariff threats are simply a Trump negotiation tool.
We know that he is all in on tariffs. He talked the other day just about how they could repeal the income tax. You know, before the First World War, we didn't have the income tax, and things were great. We were so rich. We were the best. We were the most rich because of tariffs. And he talks about wanting to go back to that. But he also uses tariffs as a show of political force. And we saw that with the government of Colombia on the weekend. The Trump administration arrested a bunch of criminals. I mean, these are really bad dudes that they arrested. I don't know why the Biden administration hadn't picked them up. They knew where they were. They knew that they were guilty of all kinds of violent, nasty crimes. And a bunch of them were from Colombia. And so they're flying a plane of a few hundred Colombians back to Colombia, nasty criminals. And the president of Colombia says, oh, well, we won't take them. So Trump posts to social media, all right, you're getting a 25% tariff now, 50% tariff by the end of next week, plus all of these other measures. All of a sudden, the situation's
Colombia
resolved.
says, welcome back.
Yeah, all of a sudden, they're like, yeah, no problem. So for Trump, it's both an economic measure and a negotiating tool. I don't think we're going to escape these.
Premier Danielle Smith says Ottawa should appoint a border czar to work collaboratively with the United States. She told reporters Wednesday that a Canadian border czar would work with American counterpart Tom Homan to crack down on fentanyl and illegal crossings, something that Trump has repeatedly said is a major issue. Smith says she has already put a name forward.
A general. Whoever it is, we've got lots of retired generals. I had a former retired general be my deputy minister, Paul Winnick. I've volunteered his name up, but that's who I think it should be to show that we're serious. Someone who understands military operations, who understands deployment, who understands the seriousness with which we have to take this issue. So I don't know who the federal government has in mind, but that's the kind of person that we need. We're going to see within 39 days, I think, a change in Prime Minister. And then after that, there may be another change in Prime Minister. I think that's why it needs to have an independent person who, with any luck, would be able to withstand changes of government so that we are able to seamlessly ensure that we can work with the Americans on this.
Smith has said that her government invited American network Fox News to the Coutts border crossing to help demonstrate Alberta's efforts to beef up security. She also said she's pleased with the federal government using Black Hawk helicopters for the RCMP to patrol the border. Patrols recently started in Manitoba and began Wednesday in Alberta. Smith also made it clear this week that all of Canada needs to act on border security immediately prior to the commencement of tariffs. She says the province sent a Black Hawk helicopter to monitor Alberta's border with Montana's, along with several other measures to make good with the United States on critical border issues such as cracking down on illegal drugs and illegal immigration, issues Trump said were the reason for imposing tariffs if Canada does not take action.
That is why why we also sent a Fox News crew to the Coutts border today to showcase the work Alberta has been doing to secure our border, including the establishment of a new interdiction patrol team within the Alberta Sheriffs to combat drug smuggling, gun trafficking, and other illegal activities along Alberta's 298-kilometre international boundary with the United States. This interdiction team will be supported by 51 uniformed officers equipped with carbine rifles, weapons for tactical operations, 10 support staff, including dispatchers and analysts, 4 drug patrol dogs, 10 cold weather surveillance drones capable of operating in high winds with dedicated pilots, 4 narcotics analyzers to test for illicit drugs. Additionally, Alberta's government will create a 2-kilometre deep critical border zone deemed critical infrastructure, allowing sheriffs to arrest individuals attempting to cross the border illegally or traffic drugs or weapons without the need for a warrant.
Trump's Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick said on Wednesday afternoon that if Canada and Mexico act swiftly to address their border concerns, they can avoid tariffs, calling it instead an action of domestic policy. Meantime, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh vowed early on Thursday to force a spring election at the end of March when Parliament is scheduled to return. But even as he doubled down on his pledge to help topple the Liberal government, Singh called on that government to recall Parliament early to work on legislation to prepare for this possible tariff war with the United States. All 3 main opposition parties have said they intend to bring down the government in a confidence vote at the earliest opportunity. Parliament is currently prorogued until March 24th as the Liberals choose a new leader to replace outgoing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Keeping on the prorogation topic, though, the Justice Centre for the Constitutional Freedoms is working on a very interesting court case on the legality of the prorogation of parliaments. The case has been expedited, and many believe the Liberals prorogued simply to have a leadership race. John Carpay, the president of the JCCF, sat down with BCN's Jeanette Rocher to explain how this case will proceed and if there's any chance of winning.
As everybody may recall, on January the 6th, the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, prorogued Parliament, which basically is to shut down Parliament, but without an election following it. Right. And it was for the benefit of the Liberal Party to have its leadership race. And our argument before the federal court is that this is an abuse of prorogation. Shutting down Parliament should only be done when Parliament has fully finished its business, and it should not be used as a tool for the benefit of one political party. It should be done only in the national interest. And so we secured an initial court ruling to get this expedited, because usually these cases take months, years. And so the court is going to be hearing oral argument on February 13th and 14th, and we could be getting a decision as early as February 17th. And if the court rules in our favor, then Parliament would go right back into where it was, and there could be a non-confidence vote and an immediate election.
Yeah. Now, Parliament, of course, resumes on March 24th. So do you think this court case could actually be decided before then? Hoping.
Yeah,
right?
we could. Well, we're filing our written materials in the first week of February, so is the federal government. And then February 13th and 14th, there's oral argument. So Monday, February 17th, we could have a ruling that sets aside prorogation. And if the ruling is in our favor, then Parliament has to resume immediately the following day or the day thereafter.
Okay, so if you win, that's what happens then?
Yes.
Okay.
Parliament goes right. The court will declare that the prorogation was not legal, and therefore we will behave as though it never existed because it was not valid from the first place, which means that Parliament could go back into session and we could get a non-confidence vote triggering an election.
Yeah, interesting. Now, if you lose, what message does that send to the Canadian public and to politicians?
It's a novel case, so the law in Canada is not clear on what exactly is the Prime Minister's power to shut down Parliament. There's no clear law on it. We have an interesting precedent from the United Kingdom, which is persuasive, but the court need not follow it. In 2019, the Prime Minister Boris Johnson prorogued Parliament. That was for only 5 weeks, not 11 weeks as in Canada. And the court said that the prorogation was illegal and Parliament came right back to work the next day. And so we have an interesting precedent that we are putting before the court, and it's going to provide some clarity in Canadian law on this topic.
A federal inquiry into foreign interference says there is no evidence of, quote, traitors in Parliament conspiring with foreign states, dismissing suggestions to the contrary that alarmed the public. The foreign interference inquiry recommends some changes, but says Canada's democratic institutions have held up well against the dangers. Inquiry Commissioner Mary Jose Ugg makes more than 4 dozen recommendations to improve preparedness, transparency, and shore up electoral integrity. Ugg's findings and advice come in the middle of a campaign for the federal Liberal leadership and possibly just weeks before a federal election.
Foreign interference did not impact the outcome of the last 2 general elections. Although a few situations involving attempts to curry favor or develop problematic relationship with a parliamentarian have come to light, such phenomena remain marginal and so far appear to have been largely ineffective.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says he wants to see immigrants with temporary visas who are guilty of hate crimes or violence to be deported. Some people are calling this a Trump move. Jeanette Roche sat down with Lethbridge MP Rachel Thomas to hear her thoughts on the matter. She also discussed other issues of concern in southern Alberta.
Well, I think it's important to remember that Canada is a pro-immigration nation. We've always welcomed people from other countries. It's very much how we've been built as a country. However, we also believe in law and order. We believe in a justice system that is vibrant in nature, which means that ultimately our laws need to be upheld, and when they aren't, there are consequences. So when individuals are coming into Canada and they are living here on a work visa, let's say, they need to be held accountable in terms of their actions. And so if they are acting in a way that goes against the laws of our country, if they are perpetuating violence or instigating hate, causing harm to another individual, they need to be called to account on that. And so Pierre Poilievre has simply said, look, if individuals who are here on a temporary visa are not able to abide by our laws, if they are committing crimes against Canadian people, then they can be deported. They should, perhaps go back to their country of origin, because clearly they don't respect the values that we hold here in Canada and the laws that we've put in place to govern our country.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Speaking of hate crimes, we just observed the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, and yet anti-Semitic hate continues in Canada, and I think Canadians are tired of it. So there are far too many, demonstrations calling for deaths to Jews, not to mention death to Canada, right? So, Rachel, how would a Conservative government deal with this?
When we say never again, we really need to mean that. Which means that our leaders need to make sure that their rhetoric doesn't perpetuate the situation, which in this case, I would argue that Justin Trudeau and many of his cabinet ministers, either through their silence or by saying the wrong thing, actually did allow for or even instigated ill actions to be taken against the Jewish community. The opposite was needed. We needed a leader. We do still need a leader, I should say, who is actually going to stand up for the rights of all Canadians, and in particular, the Jewish community in this case, which is extremely vulnerable. And we need to make sure that they are granted safety. Look, when a business is burned to the ground because it's owned by a Jewish individual, that's wrong. When individuals are blockaded from their neighborhood because it's a Jewish community, that's wrong. When there are drive-by shootings on schools because they are Jewish students, that's wrong. And when these things have happened, which they all have, Prime Minister Trudeau has been nowhere to be seen. And in fact, his cabinet ministers have come out and said atrocious things. And so, look, at the end of the day, we need leadership that is going to stand up for the rights of the Jewish people, for the rights of Israel to exist and to defend itself.
All right, turning our eyes more locally here, Lethbridge continues to see drug addiction and crime associated with the homeless population. And the number of encampments saw a huge increase last November in the downtown core. So what help should the federal government be providing for these problems, Rachel?
Yeah, I appreciate the question because it's certainly one that I'm hearing from people within the Lethbridge area quite consistently. There's great concern from those in our community. People want to know what can be done or what is going to be done. They're feeling unsafe because of the increased level of crime and chaos that is transpiring. A lot of that has to do with weakened laws at the federal level under the Justin Trudeau Liberals. In addition to that, though, there's also been this release of greater of hard drugs. There's been almost a normalcy put to it, and so as a result, we've seen increased overdose deaths. So since Justin Trudeau became Prime Minister, 47,000 Canadians have died because of drug overdose. That's a 200% increase since 2016. And so our loved ones deserve better. People deserve a second chance, which means that ultimately they deserve access to treatment and to recovery options. And that's what we want to offer as Conservatives. We want to offer that chance to take back one's life. We want to offer a chance for loved ones to be brought home drug-free. And so that's what we're committed to as Conservatives.
Dozens of Alberta scientists, doctors, and researchers have penned an open letter calling on the Alberta government to reject the recommendations contained in its recently released pandemic response reports. The group, including experts in infectious disease, pediatrics, virology, and immunology, say it is essential government policies are based on well-established scientific evidence, and it claims the task force misrepresents data. The 269-page report released publicly without notice last Friday was done by a government-appointed panel and calls for limits on COVID-19 vaccines and for health professionals not to be punished for promoting alternative treatments. Speaking to reporters on Wednesday, Premier Smith said critics of the $2 million review are trying to control the narrative, and she said she doesn't want to see, quote, contrarian voices shut out when reviewing pandemic response measures. By the year 2046, 1 in 5 Albertans will be 65 years of age or older. And over the next 10 years, the demand for continuing care in Alberta is projected to grow by 80%, increasing even faster as people live longer and with more complex needs. Alberta's government announced a new provincial continuing care agency, Assisted Living Alberta, as part of the province's health refocusing. Jason Nixon, Minister of Seniors, Community and Social Services, made the announcement on Thursday.
Assisted Living Alberta will offer Albertans access to a full range of wraparound services for medical and non-medical supports, home care and community supports, to housing and social services and other supports. Through Assisted Living Alberta, we will prioritize addressing a person's complex needs of care rather than focusing on simply providing medical care for a particular diagnosis. Assisted Living Alberta will bring together the medical care that Albertans rely on with the power of the social service organizations and nonprofits that provide support to create true wraparound services based on the needs of each Albertan.
Now, as part of the $3.8 billion Canada-wide Early Learning and Childcare Agreement, on Thursday, the Alberta government introduced flat monthly parent fees for full-time and part-time licensed childcare. Beginning April the 1st, parents with children up to kindergarten age attending full-time licensed daycare facilities and family day home programs will be eligible for just over $326 per month, or roughly $15 a day. Parents needing part-time care will pay $230 per month. This means a family using full-time daycare could save on average $11,000 per child per year. The flat monthly parent fee will replace the child care subsidy program for children attending childcare during regular school hours. The subsidy for children attending out-of-school care will not change. The Insurance Bureau of Canada says a ferocious wildfire that swept through Jasper, Alberta last summer caused an estimated $1.2 billion in insured damages. That's up from an initial estimate of $880 million. Citing data from analysis firm Cat IQ, The Bureau says the Jasper blaze was the second costliest fire event in Canadian history. Flames destroyed a third of the Rocky Mountain community, and the Bureau says more than 92% of those properties now have an approved demolition permit from Parks Canada. Now, you may have noticed a new listing on your TV guide. That's because a new channel has launched across Canada this past week, and in a sense, it's part of the Miracle Channel family. It turns out our own Bridge City News has a roundabout connection to the famous Dr. Phil McGraw of TV's Dr. Phil Show. Yes, that Dr. Phil. So, MCA Media Group, which is the umbrella company of Miracle Channel and BCN, is announcing a strategic partnership with Dr. Phil's Merit Street Media USA to launch Merit TV Canada, a new television network featuring high-quality, family-friendly programming across the nation. Here is a sneak preview of what you can expect to see on Merit TV Canada.
Welcome to Dr. Phil Primetime.
That's the goal of conversation and good ideas and bad ideas. Expose it, wrestle with it.
Hey, that will make a man snap like a twig.
I like that. I can live with this.
Yes,
boy.
Oh, come on! The one and only DJ Khaled.
I'm living now. I know what living is for real now. This is like the purest form of love.
Dr. Phil has obviously got a long, trusted track record. He's got a great brand as well, and he has been trying to bring great entertainment and bring great programs that help bring people to the table to have conversation. And that's something that we've been wanting to do up here at Canada and we've been working towards. So there's just so many areas that we actually aligned in quite well. So after a long time of getting to know each other and working through the process, well, we finally got a fantastic deal done together, which is going to position us to be able to help Canada, to bring great content to you guys, to produce content that's going to be uplifting, but also content that's going to be informative. And trust me, you're not going to want to miss the amount of amazing programs that are going to be on Merit TV. I want to challenge you. If you don't have it yet on your cable or your satellite, call your cable provider and let them know you want Merit TV Canada, because right now we've launched all across Rogers, on Bell, TELUS is coming soon, and there's so many others that are currently picking us up. So just a matter of time before it comes into your home. Thank you so much, and we're just believing that the best is yet to come with this.
Some children have had to interrupt their educational journey, perhaps because of medical conditions, mental health challenges, financial difficulties, or maybe even a broken family situation. There is help for them thanks to a school in Coaldale. That interview is next. And if you're watching us online, that full interview is available on our YouTube channel.